Call the meeting to order. Public hearing first?
Is it right? Oh, is it right?
No, public hearing tonight.
Tonight, that's right.
I'll say 6:30 tonight's what I thought, at a whole different location than this.
I just was looking at the top there.
Here, we can pull that off and do something.
We can get that finished right now. Okay, first thing, we respectfully acknowledge that we live and work in Mi'kmaq as the steward of the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. I don't have any changes to the agenda that I'm aware of. Yes?
I just want to add something.
Yeah?
I just want to give a report on a meeting that I had with a constituent dealing with a planning issue. And it'll be self-evident why when I give it. So.
Okay. Anything else? We want to move to approve the agenda as amended? Second. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Public input, I'm not aware of any. But, yes, no, but none that's scheduled. But, yeah, just come on up and state your name and where you live, all that kind of stuff.
Hi, I'm Peggy Wilson, 59 Main Street. Good morning.
Morning.
I'm fairly confident that all of you are suffering varying degrees of Peggy fatigue. I too am hoping that we're coming close to the end of this part of our relationship. On July 22nd, I addressed council concerning the commercial core, specifically Valley Road, and requested consideration for Valley Road to be converted to R2 zone. I mentioned that I had spoken to Garth about the possibility of Big Red's food bank and Nova Scotia Power being included in the highway commercial and the art gallery being non-compliant within the R2 zone. He said that it could be possible that most things are if there's a will to do so. I know this to be true because on page 53 of the secondary plan, the policy was written to respond directly to residents and CWINs to demand a single zone for their subdivision in respect to R3 to protect the character and single-family dwelling. Seemed very simple to me. Once the council meeting commenced, you had a brief discussion about my concerns, where Councillor Wells stated there was no pushback regarding the commercial core aspect of the plan. Your discussion was that noise, restaurant, bars, and late nights were the only issues people were concerned about. You felt that those issues could be addressed with a development agreement. Garth was not in the council chambers when I spoke to council on July 25th. When he arrived for his agenda item, Councillor Church asked Garth if there was any changes to be made to the commercial core. He stated that you, the council, had not given him direction in regard. Then the meeting moved forward and Garth discussed September 5th as a possible date for the next public hearing. Discussion over. Those are not the only issues. Traffic and parking are also real issues for a predominantly residential neighborhood. The list of acceptable businesses and the potential for significant increase in density on that stretch of road, a narrow road with no shoulders, there are considerable issues that need to be addressed. All of these issues will be compounded with their proposed 2 apartment buildings. Why can't residential and existing businesses coexist without promoting more commercial growth on a stretch of road that can barely handle the current traffic flow? There are 16 different permitted uses that would not require parking if this plan goes forward as written. After that particular meeting on July 25th, I emailed Derek with the CC to Garth asking for a meeting. Again, it was stated that the date for the meeting had been set and it would be inappropriate. Thankfully, they made time to meet with me and hear my concerns. During that meeting, which in my opinion was neither conflict of interest nor collusion, Garth stated that my concerns were mine alone and that they did not gain traction as you, the council, and the planning department want Valley Road to be commercial. I asked him why then are they leaving the option in the plan for up to 10 units possible in several places in the commercial core in addition to the property already under development agreement for 2 units on Valley Road. Any empty lots or parcels of land that come available would be more attractive to a developer as apartments rather than the list of acceptable commercial uses, removing your desire for a commercial corridor and possibly increasing unwanted density for residents. Garth stated that once the date had been set for the public hearing, the document, even if they wanted to, cannot be altered in any way. It was suggested that if the plan gets approved, that the council could immediately make a motion to remove the commercial core section of the plan for review by Planning Advisory Committee. I have since heard from several dozen people that this is unlikely to happen and that the plan should not be approved by the people of this village with the commercial core still in debate. My neighborhood is a neighborhood in transition, and for multiple reasons, my neighbors are unable to engage in this matter. There are more cross streets and intersections and parking lots rather than actual neighbors. If traction is what is required, I had to go further afield and inform all the people in the commercial core of changes that they may not know about or want. So I would like to ask Councillor Wells if he has received sufficient pushback from any residents to assist in finding a way to ensure this document reflects what the people of this village want. Councillor Wells?
Speak when you're finished.
I'm finished. Thank you.
I'm not going to predetermine what may happen. Stay vague, we may have some discussion. Garth and I did meet with Peggy. Explained to her that after notice of intent is given, it's not usual to have private meetings, that everything has to be in public, so all council is aware of what's being addressed. And I told her that I would meet with the proviso that a record be made of what was discussed so that all council is aware. And she summarized it very well, so I made notes and they're very similar. Few little differences, but at the same time we did meet. And yes, since then I have gotten some correspondence to add to the list of correspondence. And there are some perhaps unresolved issues with respect to the extent of the density that would happen on Valley if every lot was able to put up the apartment buildings that may be allowed under the Act. I don't think that's likely to happen, but there is some question about density on Valley Road and the commercial core. And certainly council has discussed it, and we don't want to eliminate all the commercial. We need to have some areas of commercial to make it a viable village. But, it's an unresolved issue. When I say unresolved, there's still, in many of the issues that we were dealing with, we met with the people in the Back Harbor, East Wind, and got a resolution, I think, that kept the residents happy and kept the main intent of the plan intact. The issues on Valley, I think, need to go to PAC. Depending on what happens tonight, I'm not going to prejudge what's going to happen tonight, but if the plan as it is proposed goes through tonight, I would propose to make a motion that the issue of the density on Valley Road, the commercial section of Valley Road, would be referred immediately to PAC for further review. Even if we pass the plan tonight, it doesn't mean the next day we can't take a look at some areas that may not be, they're never going to be perfect, they're never going to be to everybody's satisfaction, but they may need more discussion. And that also applies to areas on water and Duke. There's a section on Duke and water that come together. But we made some changes to revert back what was going to be commercial back to the residential, but the northern end, I guess, that's now commercial, and some of those residents want that to be residential as well. And I think if we refer both of those issues to PAC
Potential amendments.
for potential amendments, would be something that I would consider. But depending on what happens tonight, maybe after tonight's meeting, we'll just throw the whole plan out and say, go back to the old plan, and that's the option. If it doesn't go through tonight,
We're right back where we started.
back where we started. And I think we've done a lot of good work. We've made a lot of good changes. Is it perfect? No, never going to be perfect. Never going to keep everybody happy. You know that. I know that. This is Chester. I mean, this is what we do. But I would put them as late flagged items or unresolved issues. And Peggy's been very articulate through this whole process and bringing them forth, and I thank you for doing that. But, you know, 6:30 tonight, we'll have a public meeting. We'll hear from the public again. I'm sure the people will be telling us it's all doom and gloom, that it's going to go in the village and all that. I get that. I have a little more confidence that with the protections we put in with doing these commercial developments by development agreement, where we put development agreements back in the plan, it will control a lot of that concern. But point being,
It's not entirely resolved yet.
Not entirely resolved yet.
Amendments may be needed.
amendments may be needed, if we do make an amendment, if we decide tonight to
Adopt.
that's one issue. If we say no, send it back to planning for further amendments, it'll go to the next council and it'll start from scratch.
So this is an all or nothing situation tonight? This document is fixed, it either goes through as is or revert back to the old?
Well, if we make any significant changes, I think it then it has to go back.
I'll look for legal advice on that. I think I know the answer.
You can make clarity changes, and if an issue changes, but you can't make substantial changes.
These would be substantial,
Of course.
what you're asking for. But could we approve it and then recommend that it go to PAC to?
For amendments, yes, we can do
We
that.
consider amendments, yeah. They're not gonna-
Or can you take out the 10-unit
No,
That would
aspect?
be substantial.
that's a substantial.
Okay.
The thing that bugs me, is that it's commercial now, isn't it, in True Valley?
There's, yeah.
But the thing that I think we struggle with here is that in the other two cases where they, like Back Harbor and East Wind, there was a groundswell of requests coming from people that actually were in that zone. And so far, most of the correspondence that I've seen, that I could be wrong, is from people outside of this zone that exists now. So should we delete that zone or nuke it, then we may.
But be clear, the people that are responding are in the residential zone that abut that zone. So they are impacted, so
I get that. Yeah, I just, when we take away, like, people may have purchased, for example, property in there with some future intent to do something that would be commercial related, and then we delete that, then we get a new bunch of requests. So like, as Derek rightly said, there is no perfect way. Somebody's not gonna be happy. And trying to find the least number of happy people, well, that's not so easy.
Well, these people may not live in the commercial zone, but they live in a village that they are very passionate about, and that is the difference, right? That you look at Valley Road, there's a parking lot that no one knows what's going to happen to going forward. There's a parcel of land directly across the street from that with an elderly couple that no one knows what's going to happen with. There is the transition that I'm talking about with 2 10-unit buildings, never happened on that road before. That's a huge transition to happen on a really messed up intersection. Then you have an Airbnb, then you have a gallery, then you have all of Colin McDonald stuff on the other side of the street. And it was even stated to me that if Colin McDonald sat with me, it would make a difference. I find that offensive, really, that one person would need to stand with me when I think all of my thought processes and things that I've presented to you make sense. I'm guessing if Colin wanted to change something, he wouldn't have to have me sit next to him to change something. I just want consideration given to the fact that that piece of road has a huge potential, that every parcel that comes up there could be an 8 or 10 unit building. And you're not getting your commercial aspect that you want if that happens. I'm not a sky is falling person, and I don't think all of this is going to happen at once. But if this document goes forward, it's going to be in play for a very long time. And I just want every possible avenue explored.
So are you primarily worried about the residential occupancy potential, or is it other commercial uses?
I am
Which?
probably worried more about the 10-unit buildings. The 4-unit buildings with the commercial entity, I'm not really worried that much about. The part that does worry me about that is that they don't have to have parking. You know, parking can be in 300 meters away or whatever, but there's a myriad of things in there that can really be troubling going forward. It is not a huge stretch of road.
Yeah.
It really isn't.
We have the public hearing tonight, so I mean,
Yeah.
we'll limit that.
There is other people who want to speak.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah, next person.
Morning, my name's Shannon Black, 65 Duke Street, and
Sorry, address it.
65 Duke. And I wasn't able to attend the public meeting last in July, but I was distressed by the manner in which the submission from a constituent about conflict of interest was addressed by this council, by you, Mr. Warden, and also by you, Mr. Wells. And I took a look at the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and I think that there's a way of addressing any current and future concerns about potential conflicts of interest among members of the council. Mr. Wells, I'd just like to start by saying I appreciate that you were concerned about the perception of a conflict of interest, that you sought legal advice, that there was not a conflict of interest, and I'm not trying to assert that.
What issue are you talking about?
The issue I'm talking about was the one that came up at the July public hearing where somebody said that you had a financial interest in the development on the Commons Road.
Oh, which is probably August, yeah.
Yes, and you made your opinion on that clear by shouting at her and accusing her of being a liar. But I would like to point out for the record that you did recuse yourself on 2 occasions because of a potential conflict of interest. And what I'm saying is that I appreciate you sought legal counsel. It wasn't, you've satisfied yourself that you weren't in a conflict of interest. But I would like to point out that the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act at section 6.1 sub A says that where a member at a meeting has any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in any matter and is present at the meeting, they shall, as soon as practicable after the commencement of the meeting, disclose the interest and the general nature thereof. Mr. Vino, you have recused yourself on 5 occasions already this year and 8 occasions last year because of a conflict of interest. But I'm not aware that on any occasion you have also described the general nature of that conflict of interest as you're required to do by the Conflict of Interest Act. And my request to council is that it go back and amend the minutes to add those details so that we can see what the nature of the conflict of interest is that you're engaged in. It's an important part of disclosure and it's required by law. And I would also ask the same of you, Mr. Wells, that you go back and ask that the minutes be amended to reflect what you were concerned was a conflict of interest. And in that kind of clarity and disclosure, there can be no confusion among members as to what is going on amongst members of council who are often in contact and working for developers. And I would like to also say that I share the concern of that constituent, and I appreciate that she brought it up in the public hearing. So perhaps I could ask the warden for an undertaking to amend the minutes as
I'll tell you what
requested.
little I know, and without getting sitting down with the lawyers and stuff, we can't amend the minutes. That's an impossible task.
I see.
But it is possible that they can, at the next meeting or this meeting if they choose, describe their conflicts and have it reflected in in the minutes, but it's just I can't amend ones that have already taken place because they didn't say it there, so I couldn't possibly say that they did.
I understand, okay, I understand, but perhaps council could create a record that could accompany the record that's to be kept by the municipality of any declarations of disclosure of interest.
Well, I could ask, but I mean, I want to talk to these guys a little bit first about the potential that they could provide us with that information and bring it to the next council meeting.
And I would actually also ask, I noted in the minutes from another meeting that somebody came from the provincial government and talked to council as a whole about
Yes.
conflict of interest, and perhaps that person could be consulted to give you a degree of detail that would be satisfactory.
Just exactly what's required.
Exactly, and I would request that you err on the side of more rather than less, particularly when this council is tasked with voting on development proposals, both in the land use bylaws and the SPS, that is recognized by all residents as being very development-centric.
I will have staff take a look at what the best approach to address your concern.
I appreciate that, thank you very much. And the one other quick question I have is, in the SPS, the current SPS, at page 83 of the document or page 85 of the PDF, there's a reference to a growth strategy, and it's in policy SI-2, which is talking about expanding existing services or provision of new services. And it says, you know, in compliance with the growth strategy. And I have searched for the growth strategy elsewhere and I can't find it. And I'd like to know what that document is and where I can find it. And I'm wondering, is it the same policy that was commented on when Mr. Wells asked in discussion of the Valley Road 2 10-unit apartments, when he asked if it was possible for council to permit a development if it were for a fewer number of units. It says in the minutes, it was commented that council would be working against policy if they limited the number of units allowed. And what policy is that? Is that the growth strategy? Is that something else? So maybe I want to see two documents.
Yeah, I wish Gareth was.
Okay. So that's it. Thank you
I
very
don't
much.
have that all memorized.
Okay. I'll look forward to receiving that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Sure.
So it's around receiving information, having conversations, opening emails and so on, and I'll probably look to Sam for legal advice. After again, and it's been referenced, after a public hearing has been declared, identified. And I know that my second or third year on council during the Soul Canoe stuff, there was a lot of stuff going on. And once we identified the dates for the public hearing, we were all advised, and I was advised and paid particular attention to not receive anything. Maybe I'm wrong, and I will admit when I'm wrong all the time. But any new information would be dealt with at the public hearing. And I wasn't to receive anything or, read anything or have any conversations if I could help it prior to that public hearing. So I know that we've referenced this and other people have referenced it, and I felt bad for staff and for Councillor Wells in particular because the reference was not receiving information, not meeting with constituents. And so for me going forward, not that I'm going to be on council anymore, but I just need to know. So that is correct, what I learned in 2013 and 14 around receiving anything new once we set the date for a public hearing.
I think the concept is that all the information that council has to consider has to be equally available to all councilors.
Okay.
That's just the concern.
And Derek referenced that. So yeah, so again, because again,
I can't remember exactly
Yeah.
something, but I think if you had received something and then made it available to the rest of council, I think that would be.
But there's a fine line. So in terms of being sure that if I received an email, made sure everyone got it for the public hearing. So again, I guess I was just, I felt for staff and Councillor Wells when that reference was made a couple of times. And I didn't think it was appropriate, and I just wanted some clarity myself around that.
Yeah,
So,
it's impossible not to receive.
well,
People
we
send it to
do
you.
our best, and somebody asks
Well, I
me, if
know.
somebody asked me for a
Go to the
meeting
gas station,
personally.
somebody talks to you, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, but just to be clear, if somebody had asked me for a meeting during the Soul Canoe, I would never have said yes.
Oh, no,
Right? So I just want to make that clear that that's the what we're governed and how we're governed and so on. So, because again, I felt bad, so this was my opportunity to ask that, because I left council meetings and thought of it, and never did anything about it. Thank you, Ben.
If I could just clarify one thing, I had asked for a meeting on July 26th.
Which was
July
July.
25th was my request for a meeting. There was a 2-week lag before there was any communication, and that's when I went to my mailbox and I saw that it was confirmed that the date was set. So I had asked 2 weeks prior, and then the day of, I contacted them and said, oh, come on, we're in this situation again, and they did meet with me. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the public? Yes.
Because I'm not going to make the public meeting this evening. My name's Bunch Fraser. I live at 255 Haddon Hill, outside the village. But I co-own a property in the village, and I manage the commercial property at 57 King Street. It's a dental office. So I've been sort of concerned about what's going on in the village and reading as much as I can of the bylaw proposed. My concern was with the commercial core designation, the commercial core section of the proposed bylaw.
Valley Road, you mean?
No, not that. Just the commercial core, and not even the extent. Development's a good thing. I think that we need to grow somewhat, but the property that I manage at 57 King Street has a lot of water. It will never run out of water. Unfortunately, the level of arsenic in it is a level that you cannot, it's 2,000 times the allowable amount of arsenic in the water. I have to get water for the drinking water for the building. And right now it's just it's a daily use, and people don't drink a lot of water when they're there. I have to go and get drinking water. The grocery stores on several occasions this summer has run out of water. So I'm unable to get drinking water for my building. And I see the water truck coming into the village on almost daily now to fill up cisterns that businesses have. Going back to the commercial core, I think it needs to be reviewed so that the allowance for the possibility of a 10-unit apartment or 10-unit building, could be a condo, be reconsidered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Brad Armstrong, 66 Tremont. Morning. As well as Ward. Very interesting conversation so far this morning, but I'm here to talk about the core commercial too, and I have concerns about some of the planning that you're planning perhaps to do tonight and enact that act. Of course, there's the traffic situation. A 10-unit building or 8 to 10 unit has to have its own parking. But how many of those buildings would be on that road is the question. And I think it could be quite a few. The potential is there for quite a few of those buildings. And I'll go back to beating you over the head with the water stick. I don't think this community can handle that much development. I think with the way the plan stands now, it would overdevelop the core commercial. And I hope that you would consider that tonight. And I like the idea of sending that back to PAC. And the reason for that is through this whole process, we've had several meetings, but the first couple of meetings were tied up with containers and vinyl siding. Then we went to another meeting to remove things from our District R4, more meetings. Then we went through the duplex war, and that took a few more meetings. And now we're down to a really important part, which no one's had time to deal with, including the residents. We're not planners, we're residents. We don't get paid to do this, but we show up because we care about our community. Now, whether or not, I don't live right on Valley Road, but Chester's pretty small. And the congestion is pretty quick. When Big Reds gets a pizza dough delivery, that road's tied up much like the tavern is. The whole downtown is blocked off. And by the time all the employees get to the businesses downtown at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's full. I don't want to see that on Valley Road, and I don't think you as a council want to see that. I think you want to do a plan that people actually like. But what I'm hearing now from most of the people that I know, they say, well, I'll be dead in 10 years, what the hell do I care? But is that the type of plan you want to create? You know, like, come on. There's too much development being proposed for the Valley Road. I'm not anti-everything, but I am anti-something that doesn't really make a lot of sense in the long term, right? And what you're planning for the core commercial there and in the downtown district is overdeveloping. And I believe that it'll just result in a lot of traffic jams and mayhem, like, you know, every day will be race week, are you kidding me? You know, like, so just put your thinking caps on. I like the idea of taking it back, taking this out, separating it out, because quite frankly, not enough time has been spent on it. On the YouTube video I watched, the conclusion of council was, well, it was there as commercial, let's just leave it. Times have changed. You know, you want development. There's 200 houses maybe going in Stamford. It's like those people all are going to come into Chester on the Valley Road, you know, and you want to put parking on the Valley Road for businesses? It's absurd. You have to take that back. Give us a chance to look at it and give yourself a chance to really look at it. That's all I'm asking today. I can't attend the meeting tonight unless, by heavens, my doctor appointment works out. But it's late in the day and I'll be in Bridgewater, and if I get time, I'll come. But that's why I'm here this morning, is really, that section needs more time, more thought, before you just say, oh, well, I'm tired of this plan, pass it. So that's all I got to say. Thanks very much. Thanks, Derek.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going to move along then to the minutes of the previous meeting. Committee of the Whole, July the 18th. There were questions, people.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Public presentations, not aware of it. 7.1, Community Wells, Liability, Ownership and Access, Infrastructure and Operations. Nothing simple.
Exactly. So it's a great time for it. But it was, everybody could do it, right?
Yeah.
Right, again about community wells, we had several discussions on this.
Yeah.
At present, in response to requests experienced dry wells, we attracted dry wells, provided potable water through a bottled water distribution program, and financial assistance to the water supply upgrade lending program for well upgrades or repairs. That's going along well. We did hydrological assessment in Marriott's Cove area. That did not work out well. And right now we're planning 1 to 4 test wells in the Robinson's Corner area. We're relatively optimistic on that. We haven't sunk the first well yet, but some of the well logs looks like there may be potential for groundwater, which is a lot easier to treat than surface water. Right?
When will they do something?
Waiting to hear back from one of the drillers, right? We have one lined up and we're calling around residents for other ones, property owners. And then numerous organizations have been reached out to assess their willingness to provide potable water to citizens under the Community Wells Capital Program. Right now we've paused based on this report for further direction. A number of people in the organization met, as well as Sam, to discuss liabilities. And I'll just go through some points here. Some of the liability ones mentioned was community groups have shown interest in the program as long as they do not bear any costs or liabilities.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable.
Well,
I mean, if we want to come and use their facility, right? It's obviously something we'll have to work out with insurance, of course.
yeah.
Municipalities' responsibility and liability extends for the entire life cycle of each system and not simply at the initial installation stage. Well, not all of them need a lot of stuff. Really, say East Chester, it's basically an outside tap. That'd be the infrastructure put in with the associated valves and so on, right? So backflow and so on. There's other ones, say the church in Chester Basin, well, they need a system installed. And now we would have to look at the daily checks on that. And I would suggest an agreement where we're responsible from there to the outside tap kind of deal. You know, so something reasonable like that, right? Municipality would be the official provider of potable water, so the municipality could absorb the regulatory and insurance requirements. That's true. We have to register each system as a public drinking water supply with environment, and that's true as well for those. Owner of the system for the entire duration of its operational life. Well, some of it is pretty minor infrastructure. Some of the systems are really not that bad. Again, it's if they have a treatment system and that, and we do the same testing here because we're a registered public drinking water supply here, so we do our 4 annual checks, and every 2 years we do metals, right?
Just, if I can ask you a question, because I know like the Legions and places like that, anybody who serves food and stuff has to be licensed and meet certain requirements anyway?
Yes, they have to do the same test as well.
Yeah, they're already doing it.
Exactly, right? And we coming in there, what we would have suggested is,
It's just this test would be our problem.
Yeah, that we would do those tests when we have the operators. That way, we can, if there's signage on the outside saying this water meets Canadian drinking water quality guidelines to the tap.
Fred, can you clarify one thing though?
Sure.
You can't separate the system. Like, it's not just that we're responsible for the one tap. It becomes, we're responsible for the whole system in the building then, right? So
we're responsible for the water to meet Canadian drinking water guidelines, whether we're on the hook to repair one of their problems with the well or something like
right,
that.
but
I wouldn't think so.
It becomes, all the testing becomes our responsibility
Yes.
for the entire facility.
Yes.
Is what,
Well, we're trying to cover both parties testing anyway. All I'm saying is that they already have to be tested and meet standards in the first place, because they're all providing food and this and that.
Especially if they're at a comfort center.
Well, yes.
That they've stepped up and signed a document to say, because there's only a couple so far that haven't signed, New Ross for sure, but the others have all signed. So they've already committed to that.
I don't get it, we're too much better.
Yeah, no, we don't need to.
I don't know if they'd have to test for the amount of tests that a municipality would have to do.
Well, it may be more
Yeah,
tests.
they
Oh, yeah,
do.
they would. It's a comfort center, it's special.
Yeah, for
Yes.
drinking water, registered drinking water, you have to do those 4 tests and the metals every 2 years.
Because
Right?
I mean, doing the metal test costs more, so I just know some community centers don't do that test, they just do the test for the basic
Yeah,
bacteria.
but that's where we want to take it that step higher. We'll make sure we're meeting everything and that we're comfortable that the water.
Comfortable.
stuff,
Yeah,
right?
but I'm just that they're, for the most part, being tested in the first place.
Yeah, that's right.
Point.
So just, if there's any specific questions, either one, but a lot of it would be just working with, Sam and insurance and say exactly what we're responsible for, what we can do to reduce the risk and so on. And then you have the 3 options there, and you want to look at that, and again, we don't know what the yields are on the wells necessarily, whether they have a certain function coming up, well then they would, shut off the outside tap just to make sure they're covered. And if there's one of the tests failed, well, we put a notice up.
Then you stop using it.
Yeah, exactly, until we resolve it. And we're only looking at 2 or 3 months a year. Bruce would have more data on that. He's following me. And yeah, we want to work with them, but absolutely these liability issues and ownership and access issues. Good job by Larry to list these out. He's a great asset for us with this. And yeah, those are the options.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we gotta cover our liabilities, and obviously it has to be tested, but I mean, like I said, all of them are that's happening anyway. So it's not like it's not like it's not.
Well, one of the issues that we discussed though is that in order for us to be covered through insurance, we have to have a certain degree of control and access to the system, basically 24/7.
Yeah.
So we'd have, to the whole system, so some of them might be in buildings, but we'd have to get in. We can't rely upon their maintenance or their inspection.
No, exactly. And if they want to do any modifications, they would have to let us know, and that's something else we would have to have in the agreement, and staff would have to have a key, code, and discuss going on.
I'm sure they'd all give you a key, like,
And at any time, they can give, either party should be able to give notice, usually, we're no longer interested. Yeah.
Tina.
Remind me again, there was a motion of council not too long ago, which ones we decided to move forward on.
Anglican Church was one, I know that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Because that's what prompted them to go put in a new filtration
Yeah.
system.
yeah, in East Chester.
Yeah,
East
as well.
The back center in East Chester.
Yeah, and we tested the water in the community center there in New Ross and found that was very expensive to drink. Yeah, so we
We were looking at another option.
We pulled that from the motion.
That's right.
But, so Anglican Church, Chester Basin, East Chester, Racal.
Was it Blackford?
I forget, I think we only moved forward with two on that.
Yeah, 2 or 3 areas, and we have, other options one in each district to further
Moving
pursue.
forward, yeah.
Yeah, but we want to see, what the direction is from council there.
We were ready to move forward.
Yeah, that's right, it's down the road.
Anyway, I think we should just continue, but.
I think it's important.
I don't
Water
see-
security.
Yeah.
Option 2, are we talking about? Further, classified second report and more fully floors.
Well, we need to find out about the other ones as well, yeah.
Yeah, which could be the agreement, right, and the liability, have everything ready for sign. I guess when it's time to sign an agreement, then we come back to council.
Would there be a limit on cost, like, that we wouldn't do it? I think there should be.
Well, somebody should give us an estimate of what that would be.
Yeah, our capital program was roughly 10,000 per district, right, so, within there.
Yeah, that's what we are, Andre.
Yeah, I don't really see these as insurmountable barriers. And, it actually goes beyond the 2 or 3 months a year where we're in sort of this drought season. It's water security. If for some reason you're on a well and you have failure, you should be able to access water and know that it's there. So,
It gives us options, that's for sure.
I think that we need to proceed. It's required.
And this was one of the questions, whether this is intended to be a seasonal thing or a year-round. Because if it was going to be seasonal, then we had a question of whether you could register it as public water.
I think it needs to
2
be
months
there.
or 3 months, or you have to do it.
If my pump fails at my house, I should know that I can find water.
I don't think it matters much I don't think we can just register for two months of the year. I mean, you're gonna register for.
Yeah.
They have to meet the requirements anyway.
Yeah, be year round, but whether we shut it off.
We might
or
shut the tap
areas.
off, yes, in the middle of winter, so it doesn't freeze or something like that, and if somebody calls you and asks you for a problem because they got a problem, then you can go fix it.
Yeah, residents, like you say, a pump fails or something, then
Well, yeah, and if we know
there's no
that they
given,
call
we're
us.
gonna say, yeah, last test passed, and if they're willing to, help you out, sure.
What's the difference between option 1 and 2? I mean, they're both moving
Yeah,
forward.
I think it was just a mistake. Option 1 was just to move forward without any further information is what that should have been. And then option 2 was if you needed further information, we'd come back with that.
Well,
Option 1, let's go.
I just have another question. This is for drinking water, am I right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, because we wouldn't want someone going with big totes trying to fill them up and use it for water in their grass. I think this.
no, it's not for watering the grass and
I
washing
know,
the
but
car.
people do stupid things.
Well,
Yeah,
I realize that.
and Larry had a really good idea. There's a certain faucet where you push a button, and they're there, it's not needed, and it only gives you so much, then you gotta push the button again, so the ones that are trying to fill the pool are gonna be there a long time.
It's not.
Well, it's definitely a concern, I think.
We'll leave it on over.
Somebody's trying to fill their pool in Chester Basin, I'm gonna tell them not to bother.
Yeah.
Whatever, right? It's for drinking water when people have dry wells.
That's right, and the signage, and we have a good media campaign and online just describing everything and limits and, yeah.
I think that also addressed the concern about somebody stupidly could leave the tap on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, and it'd be best if it does shut itself off.
Exactly, that's just an automatic shut off.
Yeah, that's what.
yeah, we're trying to simplify it as much as possible.
Yeah.
So we wanna move forward with option 1?
Sure.
Somebody make it a motion.
Motion to move forward with option 1.
Second. Discussion, all those in favor, thank you. Motion's approved. Now, you're still here?
Don't go anywhere.
Oh, sure.
Who's doing that?
Bruce.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's for right now.
Good morning, council.
Good morning.
I'd just like to bring you up to date on the dry well monitoring. We started our program monitoring the dry wells through our website on July the 15th. and as of the 28th, the date of this report, we had 28 dry wells reported. As of this morning, we have 30.
Meets the target.
Yeah.
We don't have to break the rules.
There's one increase by one in Chester from 12 to 13, and one in Western Shore from 4 to 5.
Well, better than most years.
Sorry?
It's a lot better than most years.
Yes,
At this
yeah.
time of year.
Yeah.
Are they all dug wells?
Yes, except for 2 out of the 30 are drilled wells. The rest are all dug.
Who drilled?
And they range from about 15 to 30 feet in that ballpark of depth.
And how deep are the drilled wells in a dry?
That I don't know. I didn't know they report that. Yeah. But there's only 2, as I said. The EMO precipitation forecast of August 28th indicates that the driest area of the province was the South Shore over the last little period. Most of the rain has gone to the valley side. And longer range computers through October continue to show a dry period, except for intermittent rainfalls from storms passing through. This weekend, we're expecting up to 50 millimeters of rain this weekend.
Well, that's a solid problem.
Yeah, at this present time, the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables has offered and is giving bottled water and shower facilities on a daily basis at Graves Island. I checked with them, the public uptake has been limited to date, and it's totally manageable. So they are looking at potentially moving to evening hours. So some of the feedback was the hours of operation was restrictive from 1:30 to 3:30, but they are willing to open up in the evenings also. And they came through the long weekend with no issues. So the water distribution program, they're in contact with our retailers, except for waiting for Chester Spidals to get back to me. But the rest of the areas are ready to go if we do want to go forward. Just from a history background, I did provide a chart there looking back to 2016. The 2016 was the year of the major drought, and when the province became involved, and we were bringing in water by the truckload. Since that date, it's been minor, except for 2020, which we did have another dry period. So 2023, of course, we had nothing recorded. So as of this morning, we had established a trigger point of 30, and I'm just bringing it back to council now to reestablish that and seek direction to proceed or not. So
We're better off than we have been most years.
Yeah, I think we need to proceed. I mean, it's, you know, with the trigger points there. We're not going against policy. Or not policy, but what practice is 30. And
Yeah, so initiate the water program. We don't even.
Need a motion?
Well, we shouldn't even, because we've already.
We usually ask for a motion.
Motion. Somebody want to move it?
I will move that we initiate the water program.
second that.
Discussion?
Just like, sorry.
I'm sorry.
And I'm just reading it now, sorry. I saw the earliest date was September 9th.
that just gives me a couple of days to get it into motion.
Okay.
I have a question about our well improvement financing. Have we seen any uptick in its usage?
I have not myself.
I don't believe we have seen any uptake in it.
And I had actually talked to one of the residents, and she was unaware of it, so.
So one of the things we've already talked about is that everybody who has submitted a dry well, we will send that information to them.
Smart idea.
So that'll be practice now.
It's a program that is.
So they can improve their own wells.
Well, anecdotally, my well it was dry last week, and I deepened it, and now I have 4.5 feet of water in my dug well. And many dry wells that are dug wells. They're just poorly built old wells that are,
100 years ago.
yeah, just for a variety of reasons weren't able to be as deep as they could be or as built as properly as they could be. And so I think there are other options that are better in the long term, because obviously if your well is going dry, that's not gonna remedy itself. It's gonna continue to get problems.
It'll be out
Every year it'll be.
We do offer a program if they want to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
Any further discussion of the motion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried.
Thank you.
We'll do one more item before we have our first break. 7.3, jacket options for council committees, corporate strategic management.
Yeah, I don't know if Jen's coming in for this one, but you can start it. So there was a request from council and from members of our nominating committee to investigate the purchase of purchasing branded sailing jackets. Those jackets would be available to councilors and community members of our municipal committees as a thank you gesture and a promotional item. So we have gone and identified, looked at some different jackets and some pricing for them, and the recommended one is available there. Here's Jen. So the recommended jacket is a crew hooded jacket, and with an estimated cost of around $12,743 for a one-time purchase of them. And then there was, you can go through the updates, the questions that still need to be answered.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, in terms of supplying them for community committee members, is this like a one-time? Would this be, if approved, would this be a one-time thing? Would it be ongoing? You know, future councils, future committee members, or is it just this year?
You need a motion.
Well, you hit your hand up first.
Well, yeah, I don't know if we need a motion, but I think we should, save some time, and I'm gonna make a motion not to continue with this.
Second.
I'll discuss.
Discussion?
The when this was raised, it was because we have trouble finding people to attend our committees. Councils, I'm not sure why councilors were added into this mix, personally. That was never the request, at least to my knowledge. It was for committee members to give them something as a thank you. So it just sheds a bad light on it. And it's a shame, because it could have been a good thing for those that pretty much volunteer their time to come. But
Further discussion on the motion?
Certainly. So I don't know if it's further discussion on the motion or it's outside, if it would come after the motion, but I'm going to do it now. So there are other options. There are decent, I think, first off, I want to make it clear publicly that when I read this in the package, it's the first time I saw it. First time I saw this suggestion. To be clear, I'm not on the nominating committee, didn't bring this forward. So we have other options that are decent options. I know for sure, Abdallah, he looks pretty sharp in his jacket, that I have the same jacket, I look pretty sharp. No, and we purchased those, if you will, as part of our, a silent auction, a donation gift, where groups fundraise and we purchase, whatever, it works, we don't get them free. So I think we have other decent options on the table.
We can give them some.
So I think it's a good idea in terms of our volunteers. It's not a bad idea. I'm just not pro this one on the table in the package.
Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is carried. We're going to take a 10-minute break.
Thanks, Jennifer, for doing the research.